So this is the video that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I just never got around to it because I wanted to make sure it was right. So basically this is going to be the start of what I think is the top 5 albums of particular bands. So not what's actually out there, sales wise, is what's my favourite when it comes to a band. And one of the bands, what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be having a look at my top 5 albums from Duran Duran. And I'm sure there's going to be other videos of Duran Duran. Again, I'm kind of a huge fan of Duran Duran. As you know, it's going through our kind of albums, top 20 and all this. Myself and Marc are big fans of Duran Duran. So I'm going to be talking about 5 albums. So my apologies, because I've got loads of information here, and I will be looking it down. But there's some great bits of info on each of these albums. I'll be really interested to know, once you've listened, watched, or had a look at, see what my top 5 are. I want to know what your top 5 are. Are mine correct? Are mine anything like yours? Have you got something completely different? Or do you not agree with my top 5? It'd be great to get a debate going on the best albums by Duran Duran. So anything you have, any comments, please just below. Even if you want to say, hey John, you know what, your list is rubbish. This is what it should be. I want to hear that. I want to hear why. But I'm going to give my reasons why. And with Duran Duran, it's a band that's had so much stuff out there. And especially when it comes to album, this is so difficult that the reason why it took me some time is because I've been listening to the albums again and again and again. Now, also what I've done to kind of make sure you watch till the end. The very end, I'm going to show you the bum album of the band, what I consider the bum album, explain why. So each of these top 5s of each bands I'm going to be talking about, the final one will be the album that I think, for me, is the worst album they've done. Maybe not be commercially, but for me, it's the worst. It's an album I don't go and listen to again and again. So we're doing that today with Duran Duran. Are going to be the first. So Duran Duran are watching, don't hate me. Okay. So when it comes to my top 5, my number 5, and I really like this album, and I know a lot of people kind of hated us on this album. But for me, after the few albums before it, I think this to me was like Duran Duran getting back to being Duran Duran. And the album I'm talking about is Paper Gods. And I loved this. And I was positive I had, this came with stickers. I thought these came off. So Paper Gods is the 14th album by Duran Duran. It was released on 11th September 2015 by Warner Brothers. This album was produced by Mr. Hudson and Joshua Blair, who'd worked on the band's All You Need Is Now, which I'm not a big fan of anyway. The first single off this was Pressure Off, which I really liked. But the reviews weren't so good, hot for this album. And I don't know why, or maybe I just read the bad reviews for this album. I think it's a great album. I mean, some of the tracks, it's quite a short album, There's only 3 tracks on each side. You've got Paper Gods, which is a great track. Last Night in the City, Pressure Off, which is got Nile Rodgers on it as well. So obviously Nile Rodgers makes a return, obviously from the Reflex and everything. Like any big Duran Duran fans out there. And I also love the artwork. This is kind of not typical Duran Duran. I don't know why I was quite surprised at this, but it's very arty, very kind of like postery. You've got things like the ice cream, you've got the tiger. Maybe this is references to the previous hits of previous albums. It's the same on the back. And I know a lot of the promotional stuff that came out with this, I said you had like sticker sheets, you had all sorts. The gatefold is pretty good. I love them pictures here, but it doesn't really kind of connect with the sleeve, which I found pretty odd. But it is good. I do like having gatefold sleeves. Overall, yeah, great album. I consider all the albums I had out to make it to my top number 5. It's done well, and I think it's a great album. And if you haven't heard it, you must have a listen to this. Okay, Paper Gods, number 5. Okay, and also you get this insert with it as well, which has got all the kind of credits for it, and I was quite surprised there was no kind of imagery on this as well. This would be a great way of putting some stickers or something free on it, but they didn't. So that was my number 5, and that was Paper Gods. So my number 4, you're You're going to love this. This just got recently released, and it's Medazzaland. Now, originally, I'm going to read from here. It's the 9th studio album from Duran Duran. It was originally released on the 14th of October 1997 on Capitol Records, but was never officially released physically in Europe until 2022, which is obviously this one here. It was solely released in North America, Latin America, and Japan. It reached number 58 on the Billboard 200 and number 66 on RPM's Albums Chart. The front cover painting of the band is by Andrew Day, who created the album artwork, including a pastiche of Patrick Nagal's iconic cover of For Rio as well. So it's kind of like a little take on that. I love it. Great. I think it always reminds me of the Joker here as well. I remember buying this. I bought this on import CD, and I absolutely loved this album. And now this album was a follow-up to the poorly received covers album Thank You. Yeah, that was a very good album. That's why it's nowhere in my list. And after that album, John Taylor left the band in January 1997 before recording was complete. With only 3 members remaining, they kind of recorded this song here. Now, when it came out, it didn't perform very well. And I think this is one of the reasons why, or it is one of the reasons why they got dropped by EMI after being with them for almost 2 decades. They then went to sign with Hollywood Records and released Pop Trash instead. They were supposed to release this, but they released another album called Pop Trash, which I thought was okay. Had a couple of nice tracks on it, a couple of hits on it, but they didn't do anything with this one. It was only available digital download on CD. In 2021, when they signed a deal with BMG, it was officially released in the UK on various digital platforms. A physical 25th anniversary edition, which is this one here, on CD, and coloured vinyl following 2022. So this is the coloured vinyl, because I only ever had this on CD. I absolutely love this album because there's a great track on here. I'm going to tell you what it is any second now, just to make sure it's the right one, but I'm just going to show you the vinyl inside, because it came out on really nice, gorgeous pink vinyl. And it is a double album. Yeah, there we go, double album. So another pink vinyl. But for this version as well, and this is what I thought they really kind of pushed the boat out on this, is you also get a colour booklet with it. In it, there's loads of great images, very arty. Obviously, being Duran Duran, you would imagine that. But some great images in here, and I think it kind of fits the whole album. Now, when it comes to the tracks, I think it's an awesome album. I'm really surprised that this kind of failed, and this is the album that was responsible for being dropped from EMI. One of my favourite tracks on here, and it's one of the ones I couldn't stop playing, was Medazzaland, which is amazing, and it's full of samples, very kind of eerie. You've got sounds coming left and right. I'd love to hear that in spatial audio. It's bound to be good. I need to check that out online, see if it's done in spatial audio. But it's Electric Barbarella. And for me, that kind of harked back to the original sound of Duran Duran. Lyrically, musically, arrangement-wise. I thought it was great, but it's not a theme that kind of goes through the whole album. I think they were kind of experimenting quite a bit on this album. Out of My Mind was great. I did like that track. Midnight Sun was great. So Long Suicide, wasn't so keen on that one there. But there's some great tracks on here, and I'm really glad it kind of got a reissue. And a lot of thought went into this. You know, the coloured vinyl, the booklet, the sleeve. Everything about it is just great. And even on the front, it's not embossed, but you almost got that shiny logo. If I can kind of catch it there, you'll see it. The logo for the album is actually in a shiny paint, or whatever you call this, shiny. But that is my number 4 in this gorgeous pink vinyl. Love it. Is Medazzaland by Duran Duran. So my next one is going back to quite an early album. One thing I'm not really a fan of, there's only been a few live albums. For instance, like the Toya Warrior Rock was a great live album. Yeah, there's not been that many. But this is a great live album. And it basically is the Arena album. This album came out in 1984, November 1984, on Parlophone. In 2000 it was reissued in CD and remastered for 2 bonus tracks. This was to cap off the band's highly successful 1983-1984 world tour. What EMI released a live album which, according to the sleeve, was recorded around the world in 1984. So what they've done, basically, someone's gone around, followed them on tour, recorded the whole lot, and just taken the best songs from each of the gigs and created this live album out of it. The album features most of the band's big hits in a live environment, as well as some album extras from Rio and Seven the Ragged Tiger, and the new studio track The Wild Boys, which was produced by Nile Rodgers, who had previously remixed the single The Reflex. We all know about The Reflex. The Wild Boys single was issued with 6 separate covers, one featuring each individual band member and one of the band collectively. Now, I am going to be doing a Duran Duran top 10 singles, and a few of them are in that. Okay, because again, Duran Duran are always great for doing new things, and I love that kind of stuff, and also it's good marketing. So you would buy all of the sleeves to have all of the bands. So if you had John Taylor on the front, who was probably the most popular, all his fan base would buy him, and then you had Roger, and then so it was good marketing, really good, and I'm not surprised that single did really well. But this is the Arena album, and I can't stop listening to this. Now, when I just let you know, when I pulled this out, actually, if you look at the sleeve closely, it looks like there's all these little tiny hairs on the lens. And I was like this for a little bit, thinking, God, this is a bit dirty, but actually it's in the photo itself. And again, it comes with a great sleeve as well, some live pictures. So you can probably notice a lot of these from the Reflex video as well. I thought they could have done a lot more with this. Maybe, because obviously from the world tour, they might have had a lot of tour kind of photos and stuff. The front is great, classic Duran Duran. I love this as well because all the singles that came out at a particular time all had this kind of feel about them. Again, the back is kind of straightforward, kind of working with the front. But overall, this is just great. I mean, the tracks on it, in live versions as well. Is there something I should know? Hungry Like the Wolf, New Religion, Save a Prayer, Wild Boys, Chauffeur, Union the Snake, Planet Earth, Kelly. So this is kind of the key tracks up to that point from all their albums. So it's almost like a greatest hits, but in a live environment. But that is my number 3. That's Duran Duran, Arena. My number 2, it doesn't really need that much to talk about. We all know this album. It's probably the most successful album from Duran Duran. So this is my number 2. And of course, it's Rio. I'm going to take it out of this sleeve simply because... Oh, it's got another shiny sleeve in there as well. This is the limited edition double LP reissue. Features original US album mixes. I do have the original, but this is the reissue. Now, what I like about this, there's a texture. Like the original vinyl had like a texture to it. This has got the texture and there's some extra tracks on this. And we all know this sleeve. And obviously the singles that came off of it had this kind of feel when it came to it. But this is Rio. Now, Rio, I've got some information here. It was the second studio album by the Duran Duran. It was released on 10th of May 1982, which was a great year for music as well, through EMI. It was produced by Colin Thurston. They demoed most of the material before recording the album at Air Studios in London, and from January to March 1982, the band recorded the album. This is classed as what we call a new wave album. There's loads of synth pop. There's classic pop tunes, and obviously the classic videos that came from this as well. Hungry Like the Wolf, Rio. There's so many tracks on this album, and you've got My Own Way. My Own Way is probably my favourite Duran Duran track, and especially the 12-inch mix, My Own Way. What else you got? Lonely in the Night, Hungry Like the Wolf, Hold Back the Rain. What a tune. That is a tune. I always thought that was on the first album, weirdly enough. There's not much more to say about this. We all know about this album, Rio. It's not surprising that it does turn up in a lot of people's top 10s, top 20s. For me, it's my second one. But if you can find this version, which is the Vinyl Collector's limited edition double LP reissue, because it comes out in a double vinyl. Some great images there. But there's some extra tracks on here as well. I'm not sure which ones are the extra tracks. I'm sure My Own Way is an extra track. I'm sure that wasn't on the original Rio. But I'll find that out. In fact, if you can tell me, it was My Own Way on the original Rio version that came out in 1982. Comments below, usual. But that's my number 2, Rio. Good sing along as well. I sound great sing along to this. I love the album. Artwork's incredible. Can't remember the name of the artist, but what an artwork. So it brings me to number 1 when it comes to my Duran Duran fix. And how can this not be number one. This is when I first heard of Duran Duran. So I would have been 11 years old. I remember seeing the video for Girls on Film. So if anyone's ever seen the video for Girls on Film, there are nipples in that video. So 11-year-old, doesn't matter whose nipples they were, it was an amazing video. But also, I loved the song as well. And it's got such a catchy chorus for Girls on Film. And then all of a sudden, I remember seeing them on Top of the Pops, and they were doing Planet Earth. Planet Earth came out for Girls on Film, so I don't understand why they did that. And the way they looked, obviously I was a New Romantic at the particular time, so it was perfect. And the fact that they used the New Romantic in Planet Earth, the original song, and then the album dropped, and it just blew my mind. I do have the reissue, but it's up on my wall, and I did not want to take it off the wall. It's in white vinyl. The sleeve has been redone. It's got embossed silver over it. But what I did, I kind of picked out the original album I bought in 1981. As you can see, it's got all the marks where it's been in record bags. I played this to death, and it's Duran Duran with Duran Duran, their first ever album. Okay, so this is the debut album from Duran Duran. It was released on 15th of June 1981 through EMI again. Again, it was produced by Colin Thurston, who also produced Rio. It was recorded in London and Oxfordshire between December 1980 and January 1981. The instrumental tracks were recorded quickly, but vocalist Simon Le Bon initially struggled to sing in the studio, leading to discussions about replacing him before EMI intervened. And that's quite interesting, because if they'd got rid of Simon Le Bon, we wouldn't have these great records. You can't have Duran Duran without Simon Le Bon. 3 singles came from this album: Girls on Film, Planet Earth, and Careless Memories as well. All great songs, some great videos as well. I think there's only a video for Girls on Film. I'm not sure if there's any videos for the other one. When this album first came out, it did receive mixed reviews. It's saying that Duran Duran didn't stand out, but actually they were doing something relatively new with all the synthesizers, the stuff they were talking about. But every track on this album, I can't fault this album at all. Most albums, there'll always be that couple of, a few kind of album fillers tracks, but not this one. Every track on this I can listen to again and again. I mean, it starts off with Girls on Film, and it goes straight into Planet Earth. Then it goes into Anyone Out There. Just like the theme, the way they kind of follow on from another is just brilliant. To the Shore, Careless Memories, which is the final track on side A. And then it goes into 2, Night Boat, really kind of eerie, very thought-provoking, should I say. And then it goes into The Sounds of Thunder, which is classic Simon Le Bon lyrically, vocally, and Friends of Mine as well, which I think is quite an eerie. It used to kind of freak me out a little bit, that track. It was quite an eerie track that had sort of really low vocal in it. And then finished with Tel Aviv, a very kind of up there, kind of synth pop. But this is pure synth pop for me. This is like New Romantic, without a doubt. And I think they look great on the front as well. This is how me and my friends used to look. And then once this came out, we used to tie like scarves around us, and our hair was all like this. And we were 11 years old. And it's amazing these bands kind of made us experiment with look, music, and I was obsessed with this band. And I'm still a massive fan of this band. And I had the dream of remixing Duran Duran under the Punx Soundcheck guys with my production partner then, RF. We remixed one of their tracks, later tracks, and it's called Maybe Tomorrow, which only came out in Japan. And to me, it was kind of right. I made it. This is it. I've remixed Duran Duran. But I would love to be able to remix some of the classic tracks. If they ever did like a remix re-release, I would love to do a remix of My Own Way, which is my favourite track. So that is the final of my top 5. But as I said, there's one more to go. And to me, it's called John Taylor's Duff. And this is it. Okay. So for me, the album that I thought was Duff. Sorry, Duran Duran, if you watch this, I'm really sorry, but this album came out with so much hype and so much promise, but it's a catch-22 for me, because there was 2 tracks that came off of this as singles, which for me were outstanding, but the rest of the album just let it all go. And it's Seven of the Ragged Tiger. Now I've got a little bit of information on this because I don't know much about it. I didn't really pay much notice, but this was the 3rd album from Duran Duran. And it's released on 24th November 1983 through EMI Capitol Records, co-produced by Alex Sadkin. I can never pronounce his names. So this is kind of a change of direction from the previous album, Rio. It's a synth pop and more dance driven record, because you've got things on here like Union of the Snake, which I never really liked. I don't know why. It just grated on me. I didn't like Simon's vocals in there. Maybe it's the production of the album, but it did have the Reflex, not the version that got to #1, because that was remixed by Nile Rodgers for that version. This is similar. You're going to notice it, but there's differences between this version of the Reflex on this album and the one that releases a single. The best single on here is New Moon on Monday, because I, at the point, was living in Cyprus. I've been there for quite a few years as a kid. I moved back to the UK, and one of the first singles I bought moving back to the UK was this, New Moon on Monday, and I could not stop listening to it. So those two singles is worth buying the album for, just for those two tracks. The rest of them, I can't even tell you what they sound like, because I haven't given much time. Is because it just didn't speak to me. Again, it was a new direction. Union of the Snake was a big hit, obviously, for them, but I was not a big fan. And my duff for the band is Seven and the Ragged Tiger. I'd love to know what your opinion is on my top 5. Do you think that's correct? Do you have your top 5? Do you think this album's a duff as well, or do you not? Maybe this is your #1. I'd love to know why, if this was your #1, and let me know your thoughts on this album. If you know this album, you've had a listen, let me know your thoughts. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll revisit it. Maybe it would change, but I will do that. But thank you very much for watching my top 5 of Duran Duran, including my duff. I'm going to think of a title when I upload this video, but I'm going to think of a really nice, cool title. But this will be an ongoing theme. I'll pick out bands and top 5 albums and one-offs. So for this one is all about Duran Duran, and we will be revisiting Duran Duran again. How can we not? Especially when it comes to 70s singles, remixes, loads of stuff out there for them. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thank you.